This is the time of the week where we talk about some players who are struggling. Guys, you think you should just be able to sit in your lineup. They're not doing it for you, but what do? You can't trade anymore, most likely. So let's do this. We're looking long term. It's the stretch run here. Instead of saying, should you panic? Because you're probably already panicked. How about this? Can you trust these guys down the stretch in your lineup? Should you still be starting them? So let's see if these players, and mind you, these are big name players, they are still in the circle of trust. You didn't think we'd be here with Kyle Tucker, but here we are. Last year he was completely worthless in the second half for different reasons because he didn't play. Now, as a Cub, start out looking like the MVP. And lately, it's been anything but. He hasn't gone deep since July 19th, been homerless, and he isn't doing much else because since August started, he's hitting all of 200 with exactly one RBI. To some extent, this is part of a larger picture in the fact that the Cubs offense was one of the best, arguably the best in baseball, at least in the National League, for a lot of the first half of the season. And they haven't been. A lot of guys have predictably slowed down, like PCA, like Tucker. So what's the deal here? Are we going to see a return to what we had in maybe April, May? Or is this what we're getting? So, I love to look at that rolling xWOBA. xWOBA is probably the best all encompassing stat for how a player is performing just in general. And it's actually not too bad for Kyle Tucker. In fact, it's as stable as you can get. And so I'm showing you this just to let you know that he hasn't just been doing terribly. It's just the counting stats and what you're hoping for in fantasy hasn't been there as of late. But overall, this paints a picture of a guy who's not doing that much different, just not having great outcomes. That doesn't make you feel good on the inside, but I'll tell you what, at this point with Tucker, obviously, even if your trade deadline is still open, you shouldn't be just trading him away. That would be selling low. And of course, you're not cutting him. Don't cut him or anybody else who happens to be struggling. A guy like Eugenio Suarez, who hasn't been as good, since being traded. Don't drop a guy after a bad week or two. And I'm saying that for a reason. So Kyle Tucker is another guy you really just have to set and forget. I mean, I know it doesn't feel good to have offers in your lineup, but at any time he could hit a home run eventually. He still is stealing base. He's got 24 steals, but also in that offense, which is still a very good offense, scoring runs, some RBIs. I know, again, it's been rough lately, but at some point it's going to turn around as long as he's healthy, and it seems like he's healthy. You've just got to continue to trust him, and he's a guy I would even find it hard to bench. And the perfect example here, James Wood. Don't have to talk about it anymore because I hope you did get to buy low right after I put the buy low video out, because lo and behold, just when people get ready to get rid of him, what happened? He finally hit a home run, and the next day, 4 RBIs. This is why you just have to be patient. Now, it's fair to ask, do we need to just have that same level of patience with Lawrence Butler? Yeah, Butler's a guy who has been maybe not as bad as Wood had been the previous month. Probably, I would say, more disappointing than Cal Tucker has been because he's done less. But the real red flag here with Lawrence Butler is he's actually losing playing time. And in fact, despite the fact that he had seemingly worked his way out of this platoon, I should say, this split where he was sitting against lefties, he had started 9 games in a row. And then all of a sudden, we've seen lately he sat in 4 of the last 7 games. Now they're just not playing him at all against left-handed pitchers. And there is a good reason for that. Overall in the season, his OPS against lefties is 562, batting just 170 against left-handed pitchers, a total of 3 homers and only 1 steal. He's not giving you anything when there's a southpaw on the mound, even if he is playing. And this is another player who exploded in the second half of last season. Carried some teams throughout the fantasy playoffs because that's how hot he was toward the end of the season. And now we're seeing a reversal. Now, look, altogether, for the most part this season, he's been kind of disappointing based on where he was drafted, based on expectations from last year, and, based on the fact that he got paid and is just not living up to it already. This guy is young, talented. This whole team has been on fire offensively. The Athletics cannot stop hitting home runs and scoring, except for Lawrence Butler. He's not getting in on the action. And so, do we trust him still? Well, look, I will say, again, it's possible he does bounce back. We know he's got it in him because we've seen him do it before. But as of right now, I just got to say no. I mean, you cannot put a player out there in your fantasy lineup every day, not knowing whether he's going to be in the lineup. And again, it's trending the wrong way for him. He's losing playing time as the season goes on. they've got some other options, young players like Colby Thomas, who have a good glove, who can do something offensively. You've got a bunch of other players who are hitting. So Butler's a guy I don't want to drop. Right, if you can afford it, sure. If you're in an 8-team league, a shallow league, I guess so. But for the most part, I'd rather just bench him. That's what I'm doing where I've got him. But I don't want to start him until this really turns around. Or how about a couple of pitchers here? One that just came back, and you probably were all jazzed up to see Michael King back on the bump for the Padres until you saw him back on the bump. In his first start since May 18th, went 2 innings, gave up 2 runs, 2 walks, only 1 strikeout. And you might say, well, so what? That was his first start since May 18th. I mean, he'd been gone for so long. Of course, they're going to bring him along slowly and work him back up and ramp him up and all that. Yeah, I know, and I get that. But people are concerned because not only was he ineffective, there's a concern, well, maybe this is going to take a while. We don't have that much time left. We really don't. All right. So if you got a few weeks left and we're waiting until mid to late September before he's going like 5, 6 innings, it's going to be too late because by then your fantasy championship will have been decided. No thanks to him. So do I just keep rolling him out there and hope that he goes up to 3, 4, or 5 innings soon? I think you do. Because let's face it, the Padres are in the thick of a pennant race. They need King out there. They want King out there. I don't think they're going to bring him along as slowly as some of these other pitchers. It's not like he's coming freshly off a UCL injury. It's not like he missed an entire calendar year. This isn't a situation, like a Shane McClanahan or something. He'll be okay. This was his very first start. It wasn't great. That's to be expected. I don't think it's more than a week before you see him going up to at least 5 innings, probably 6. They need him out there. You should probably want him out there too. And the most encouraging thing is there was no dip in velocity or anything like that. No warning flags here. His fastball was sitting at 93. Well, back in the very beginning of this season, before injury, it was 93.7. So all signs point to the fact that he's just been brought back along a little slowly. But again, it's only been 1 start. Let's not worry. Our lesser owned, but still a guy who looked super valuable just a few weeks ago was Lucas Giolito. Even though he was definitely not even drafted anywhere because he wasn't even pitching until the middle of the season, he all of a sudden looked like a guy who could be like a waiver wire savior. In fact, right before the All-Star break, he had gotten a string of 6 straight starts where he went at least 6 innings or more and allowed 2 earned runs or less. That's basically like an ace in your lineup that you just plucked off of waivers. But of course, it couldn't last. Since then, it has legitimately been a roller coaster ride since the All-Star break. 5 1/3 innings, 4 earned runs, 4 innings, 5 earned runs. Looked like he was being droppable. Then, of course, 6 innings, only 1 run. 8 innings, only 1 run. And then 4 2/3 innings, 4 runs. And this is the ultimate all or nothing pitcher. And you hate to have him on your bench when he is dominant, and you hate to have him in your lineup when he struggles, and you hate having this decision to make every time he is out there. So does Lucas Giolito earn a spot in the circle of trust for fantasy for playoff contenders? I don't see how he can. Look, this last time out was arguably the worst of his starts because he walked 6 batters, right? This isn't just, a couple of batters squaring him up, going deep, and a bad inning. No, he was all over the place. And sure, that probably means that his next start, he'll walk nobody and strike out 10. Like, this is just how it goes. But overall, there are some signs here that he is due for more negative regression. He's sporting a 5.24 expected ERA, and he's gotten some good BABIP luck. Volatility, you can handle it because in the end, if it all kind of averages out to some decent ratios, fine, you take the good with the bad. But overall, I think we might be due for more bad than good. Speaking of more bad than good, the Twins. All right, so clearly we're sellers, and one guy who is feeling the effects of that is Royce Lewis. Really thought he would be a nice, stash from the IL, a nice buy low at some point. He hasn't been anything other than frustrating, and he hasn't even been hurt lately. In the month of August, Lewis hitting 194, no homers, 4 RBIs, only 2 runs scored. And he's not stealing any bases because he doesn't do that anymore. So what's Royce Lewis doing? He's just basically occupying a spot in your lineup or on your bench and giving you nothing in return. And the thing is, with the Twins, there's no really silver lining here. I mean, Luke Keyshaw is back. He's great. Yeah, start him. Is there any other Twin you can really stump for and say, yeah, this guy, just keep him in your lineup? I mean, Byron Buxton, I guess, is coming back off the IL. Maybe that'll help things. But look, I think it's time to face it. This is talking to myself as well, too, because I had some optimism with Lewis. It just doesn't look like it's happening this year. Still a talented player. When he's healthy, sure, he could deliver as a power hitter. But yeah, this version of the Twins, you can't feel good about his run RBI opportunities. He's not hitting for power. So, you know what? I think you can just completely ditch him off your roster if you need to. And unfortunately, we now have to ask ourselves the same question with Giancarlo Stanton, who, as soon as he got activated, had been great. The power has been there. The power's always there, right? But 10 homers in 40 games so far, actually hitting for average, 275, of course, driving in runs. This guy was looking like a lock. And then Aaron Judge had to go and ruin everything. Yeah, that's right. Because, when Judge was on the IL, of course, Stanton was playing pretty much every day. He was the DH. But now with Judge back, and of course they want to be cautious with him, he's clogging up that DH spot instead of playing right field. And Stanton doesn't really play right field these days because let's face it, something might fall off, it might just break and shatter in the middle of the field. And so between these two guys, yeah, they're going to have to prioritize Judge's health. And so Stanton, he's completely losing out on playing time. Only one start in the last 5 games. I mean, really, he's just not even part of the mix here because they've got so many other options. Now, here's the thing, at some point, Aaron Judge will get back to playing the outfield, which means Stanton will go back to being a DH, but I don't think it's going to be full time. But is the Giancarlo Stanton that we see right here, right now, who might play 4, if you're lucky, 5 times a week, is that still valuable enough in fantasy? This is a tough one, and it depends how deep your league is, but I'll go ahead and say yes because, like, for what it's worth, all that time missed, I guess Stanton is healthy enough to still go deep, and this is still, despite what you've seen since the All-Star break, a very talented offense, and I think they'll get their act together down the stretch here. And you know what? Maybe, if anything, this time off that Stanton has had the past week and sitting games, maybe that just keeps him more fresh. All right, you got your trusts and your busts right there. Of course, there's plenty more guys to talk about, but don't forget, if you need to add some players while you're ditching some dead weight, don't forget the latest waiver wire video is right here.